I think being a sports personality in this world is the closest thing you can be, or one of the closest things you can be to become to be godlike. What is up, guys? RLTKPHX Real Talk Phoenix podcast, episode 13.
13.
Making progress. Excited to be with you guys.
Lucky number 13.
Yeah, lucky number 13. I never liked the number 13, I'm not gonna lie. I actually have friends who would wear the number 13 playing sports.
On purpose?
That was like they were looking, yeah.
So they were like,
that was
I'm your bad luck?
No, actually, he was pretty stinking good.
Oh, wow.
Glad to be with you guys today. Super excited about what we have coming for you, the content, something that's near and dear to my heart, and I think a lot of us growing up, childhood, and those different types of things. We're going to process through today a little bit the issue of sports, or the culture, the worldwide phenomenon that is sports.
I just have one thing to say about that.
What?
How about them Cowboys?
Oh, yeah. We are Dallas Cowboys fans. Watch. We're going to all our
Hey,
subscribers.
tons of flag.
Right? Dallas Cowboy fan, Man United fan.
Hey, I wouldn't blame you right now.
Dallas Mavericks fan.
Hey, Mavericks.
Yeah.
Shout out, Luka.
They're looking tight.
Yeah, they look
nice
good.
this year.
Looking very good.
So, yeah. Sports. What
Yes,
are you
sir.
thinking, John?
Yeah, I was just thinking about last week, we had talked about this issue of identity in our podcast, and I was listening to Jordan talk about how sports formed a lot of his identity when he was a young man. And so it got me to thinking about the culture of sports and athletics and coaching and teammates and all of that stuff. And we had a conversation offline about some of the things that are different about sports when we were growing up, when we were kids. And obviously you were much more accomplished in athletic endeavors than I ever was.
Well, thank you, sir.
Yes, and you are probably a natural born athlete, whereas I am an aspiring athlete, mostly in video games and in my imagination. But Jordan has had some real expertise in playing sports. And as I had conversation with him, I thought about the things that he said. I was really interested to learn more about the culture of sports, the way it shapes young people, some of the traditional things from the past. What are some transferable principles from sports that can go into other realms of your life? So there was a lot of stuff that I was thinking on.
Yeah.
And one of the first questions I really wanted to kind of throw out there for you, Jordan, was when you think about sports, from some of your earliest memories, what was it in your mind that was so appealing about sports?
Yeah. I think when I started watching sports, obviously I'm from England, so football, soccer is the religion out there, right? It's what people do on the weekends. It's what they live for on the weekends. It's what most people play. Everybody's aspiring to be
So
a
you were
professional
able to
football
see
player.
that?
Yeah, and so I think what inspired me was like people's gravitation towards it. Like,
Okay.
people really loved it, really enjoyed it. My dad loved it and enjoyed it, right? It was a bonding thing for me and my dad. And I think as you kind of have your initial reasons why you get involved. I think some of it was family, some of it was, my dad wanted me to do it and wanting, my dad to love me and those different types of things. And then as you kind of grow and mature and as you get involved and you see the potential to change your life, you know what I'm saying, by making copious amounts of money, you see the reality that like people like, I'm a Man United fan, Old Trafford, like seats 75,000 people on a weekend, right? And imagine scoring a goal and 75,000 people cheering your name or cheering you, you know what I'm saying? And that's just the people in the stadium. Like there's hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people around the world celebrating you in that moment when you kick this ball in the net. And so, yeah, I think there was a lot attached to that. I think ultimately, it's almost like the closest, I think being a sports personality in this world is the closest thing you can be, or one of the closest things you can be to like become to be godlike. You know what I'm saying? Like having tons of people like adore you, praise you. You know what I'm saying? If they saw you, they'd be awestruck. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
And
so that was something that was motivating you early on? You could think of that when you were young?
I think early on, like I said, it was kind of like more motivated by dad and family and those different types of things. Sure. But as it became more autonomous, right, particularly I'd say in my adolescent years, and I start to see the ramifications that it had on relationships. You know what I'm saying? If you're the cool person in school, you know what I'm saying, the girls trying to holler, you know what I'm saying, they want to date you. If you're the best football player, if everyone's talking about you at school because you're the baller, you know what I'm saying? And you got to remember, like, this is the sport, right? So it's kind of like football in America, you know what I'm saying? The quarterback of the high school team, you know what I'm saying, all the girls trying to holler at him. The quarterback of the college football team, all the girls definitely trying to holler at him, you know what I'm saying? And so it's kind of like sports gave me the ability to have whatever I wanted, you know what I'm saying? Or at least I thought that's what it was going to give me.
It was going to give you that.
Yeah, and so it was like...
So at some point in your life, sports...
And I'm not saying I didn't love the game, because I really did, and I really still do. I still like to play.
Absolutely.
Even though I'm not nowhere near as good as I used to be, right? And so I still love the game and all the things that it taught me and the part in my life that it played.
Sure.
But there were
but what parts were motivating
other
you?
motivations,
Exactly.
right? It wasn't just like the love of the sport. There was other things that motivated me. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that that's where most young people are at when it comes to sports. I see this all the time with my kids. It can be something really simple like, you know, picking up something, you know, and it's like, Daddy, look at me. Are you seeing what I did? And so I see that there's a reality with children in that they want attention from their parents.
Yeah.
And it would seem like that parents want to give that attention as well.
Yeah.
But it doesn't always seem that they want to give that attention with everything. You know, like, should I give you a ribbon for picking up your room? You know, hey, Dad, look, I did something. I picked up my room. So there's something inside of children that want their parents' approval, but not necessarily for chores, right? And so I think that when I think about that, I think it's intrinsic in the nature of a child to want attention from people that they consider to be adult influencers, whether that's their parents, teachers, coaches.
Yeah, some people they respect,
you know what I mean?
Look up to,
You were hitting on this earlier when you were talking about there was something inside of you that wanted to hear several thousands of people in a crowd stand up and share your name, or people wear your jersey. The idea is that you want to be celebrated, that you want someone to be proud of you. And obviously when that can be several thousands of people, that can be a huge appealing thing. It'd be very motivating. But I guess my question is when that stuff transferred over to being more about the things that you were mentioning earlier, the popularity, the ways of getting the things that you wanted, how intense was that for you? Like, at what point did sports in your life become the thing where you kind of said, like, this is the thing I'm going to pursue, this is how I'm going to get exactly what I want? Like, what was some of the thoughts? You know, you didn't choose academics, you didn't choose other things. And from your story, what I know about you is it was the thing that kind of got you here to America.
Yeah, for sure.
Does that make sense? So when did it become about more than, like you said, just the science of the sport?
I think adolescence, man, because obviously at that point, you know, your hormones are turning on, you're starting to notice girls, right? You know, pornography was introduced at 10 years old, and so you know, all those things start to play a part in your thought process, right? What you're thinking about, what you're pursuing, what you want. And so I think for me, that's when, about that age is when things started to change for me. And not in the sense that, once again, I didn't love the sport. Like, I loved the sport, but like there were other motivations that started to creep in, and other things that I realized I could possess if I attain this thing, right? Which then adds a sense of pressure to actually obtaining that particular thing, right? Yeah. And so I think that's what happened, man. And I think honestly, I don't think it's a ton different for the generation today.
Yeah, I agree.
There are some slightly different things happening, but I think the motivation of being known is still there, right?
Right. That's a really great point, because I think that's, you know, when we think about sports, we think that, well, some kids are more into sports than others. Like, every kid's into attention.
It's true.
You know what I mean?
That's good, man. That's so true.
And so I
in
think
some way, shape, or form, right?
Exactly.
And it's just, the reality is, like, in our culture, sports is one of those things that if you're good at it, you'll get a ton of attention.
Oh, I know.
Right? And so I think you even see this in how parents push their kids towards sports and in sports programs, particularly in the United States. You know, I've been a soccer coach for a number of years. Stopped coaching a year or two ago, but I'm still pretty connected in that world. Still have a lot of friends that are coaches. Still converse with those people, and you know, it's still very fresh in my mind. And so I'll hit on a little bit more of that stuff later. But even the way you're seeing parents interact with their kids in that sporting space lets you kind of know that there's not just the pressure that the teenager or the Gen Z is feeling internally, when it comes to sports. But there's this reality that the parents or the guardians or whoever it is that's placed them in that sport is putting a sense of pressure on them as well.
Wow. What do you mean, like a sense of pressure to perform well, or what is that?
I think.
Can you explain that a little bit more?
Yeah, I guess to hit on that a little bit more. Ultimately, that I think so when I was in the coaching space, I would coach. When I first started out, I was coaching like the development teams, and so my whole goal was to make a player better. So it wasn't about winning or losing, but it was about, okay, can I make this kid better so that he can move up to a team? So I got a deep sense of satisfaction out of developing players fundamentally and then having them move up, because I developed them to a point where they were actually ready to step up to the next level. So we had 3 tiers: top team, middle team, bottom team. So I coached the bottom team and developed the bottom players. And so, the kids come to tryouts. There's tons of them coming, hundreds coming to try out for a particular age group. And, and then we would basically evaluate them as they play against each other, move them to the fields, that we thought their level was at, and then watch them play and determine, okay, we can move this one up. No, we need to move this one down, so on and so forth.
Oh, wow.
And then we would make them offers for each team, depending on where they were at. And so there was a number of times where I would have kids, like I would make offers to, and I'm the development team, right? So I'm making tons of offers to kids. And I would have several players each year that would not commit to the development team at the club I was at. And you have to understand, the club I was coaching at is one of the top clubs in our city, right? So it's one of the best places to play. And they would go play for a smaller team that there was less opportunity at and less room to grow, that may even be playing in the same league that the third team that I'm coaching is in, just because it was the top team. And so it's like they can go tell their friends, hey, this is a top team, or their parents can go tell their friends, hey, they're playing for the top team of this club, right? And so there was this I think there's this pressure that the kids feel themselves to like say they're good, and then I think there's also this pressure that parents put on their kids to be good, because then when their kids are good, it kind of justifies them. Well, hey, look at my kid, I must have done something right. Hey, look at what they're doing. They're doing it because I'm a good parent.
Wow.
Or they're doing it because I did something good in their life. And so it's kind of like an opportunity for parents.
Those superior genetics.
Exactly. It's kind of an opportunity for parents to find a sense of enoughness. Like, I can't tell you how many times I'd be standing on the sideline, like, and even myself now getting my kid into club soccer himself. Is like, he's 4, and so he's just starting out. But hearing the way the parents talk to each other, hearing the way the parents talk to their kids, hearing the way, it's always like, well, my kid this and my kid that, blah, 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 blah. It's just like, dang, like all we're doing is competing. Like even the parents are competing on the sideline. I mean, the parents are probably competing more than the kids are.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
It really makes you wonder.
It's nuts.
It makes you wonder about what you were saying earlier about how the kid or the teenager, Gen Z or whatever, that they have that desire to be known. But it seems like what you're saying is the parents also have that same desire.
Yeah.
Like they want their kid to be known.
Yeah, because then they can live vicariously through their child, right?
Wow.
Their child is achieving what they were never able to.
Yeah.
Right, and so now I live through my child. It's kind of like, and this is to deviate slightly, but my sister, and I kid you not, I'm not saying this like because she's my sister, she's probably one of the most incredible singers I've ever heard. And she did not want to pursue singing because my dad told her she had to.
Really?
So like he was like, you're gonna become a singer, and like he basically was trying to pressure her into it, but because my sister's so stubborn, the middle child, right? She was like, nope, not doing it. And so like I'm like, dang, I really truly believe my sister could have been like an artist that we would know today and like listen to. You know what I'm saying? Like we listen to anybody else. Like I really believe she was that good, and she never pursued it because my dad put an immense amount of pressure on her, and she just was not having it because at that time she just was rebelling.
So do you think that that's how you, as a coach, were able to notice things in parents that were not healthy, and how did you deal with that as a coach? Because obviously you don't want to step on parents' feelings or things like that.
Ultimately, you don't.
You just don't?
You don't. I mean, you deal with the player. You know what I'm saying? You interact with the player. And coaching is a dope and unique opportunity to speak into teenagers' lives as a coach. Like I had some amazing conversations with kids about things that were going on in their lives because they'd come to practice and they're depressed, or they come to practice, they look sad, or they're angry, or whatever else, or they're, you can just tell by their body language how they're training, whether there's something going on in their life, right? If they're light and excited and enjoying themselves and glad to be there, then you know that.
So you're sensitive to all that
stuff is well in their world, yeah. And if it's not, they're down and they're not paying attention and they're distracted and they look sad, they might be crying, they might not be talking to anybody, they might be like juggling the ball by themselves, and it's a unique opportunity to go over there and just engage with them. And so that was one of the things that I really enjoyed the most about being able to coach, was being able to speak into young boys' lives in a difficult time where they were trying to figure stuff out. A bunch of them in broken homes, a bunch of them watching their families split up, a bunch of them knowing things about their parents that they shouldn't. You know what I'm saying? And so it was just a unique opportunity. I mean,
it seems like
sharing with me all the different types of things they were doing, the girls they were chasing or whatever else.
Right.
Coach, what about, what I'm saying? It's like, yo,
sure.
You sure you want to do that, bro? You know what I'm saying? And so yeah, I think it's a cool, unique opportunity. And so those are some of the things that I'm seeing, or I saw and have seen amongst this generation in particular. I think the motivation to be known, right? I think it's everywhere, wanting to be different, wanting to stand out, wanting to be special. I think that bleeds into sports. I think the parents want it too, which adds a sense of pressure, and the parents get a sense of enoughness, get a sense of like, yo, I'm good, I did something good, look at what I did, praise me, like look up to me as well, because I produced this. And so yeah, super interesting. I think the introduction of esports is pretty crazy as well.
That's definitely something that's taken off in the past few years.
Oh, it's crazy. I mean, people are making millions of dollars playing
it's
esports.
Do you feel like it's kind of leveling out the playing ground between those who might be people who are
athletically astute and those who aren't?
Yeah.
I think so, to some degree, right? Because it gives the opportunity for somebody who doesn't have the natural talents and abilities that some others do, to actually like do something that's not like go to college and get a degree,
right?
Or become a business owner or whatever else. Like they can actually like play a game.
Yeah.
And it's kind of funny because it's like, well, you got these kids who play the sport, and then you got these kids who play a game about the sport.
Yeah, for some people who don't know
money doing it.
Yeah, for some people who might not know what esports is, could you kind of give us like a little bit of a background on?
So esports is basically, think about Madden, think about NBA, any like real like legitimate sport, and then put it on a computer game. And imagine people playing it and making millions of dollars playing against each other.
So you're saying that's happening? Kids are actually making money playing video games?
Tons of money.
Wow.
I mean, and then it's not even just those kinds of games, right? I think it kind of started more with like Call of Duty and Overwatch and those different types of games, like fighting games, strategy games, kind of started there. And I mean, you got guys who are winning $4 or $5 million because they play a tournament and win. It's like nuts.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so...
which seems to be like a tension with most parents. I feel like if I was a parent and I thought, man, I don't want my kids playing video games. Well, if I thought that my kids could play video games and make money, I might change my tune.
It's true.
So have you seen that at all? Or do you think that that's something where parents may need to think about that a little bit?
Yeah, I think like esports is becoming a legitimate path to success in life. I mean, you can't deny it. It's like a growing industry in the world, right? I mean, Twitch. I mean, dudes are making ridiculous amounts of money playing games and just talking to their fans.
Right, and people love to watch it.
But I think in the same way with like professional sports, most people don't make it. The same is true for esports, right? Most people are not going to make it. And so it has to be the same way that you would make a decision concerning like sports is the same. I think it's the same kind of decision you have to make concerning esports. Like your child would have to be extremely talented at that to even like for you to consider, okay, we should seriously put some time, effort, and energy into it. And perhaps they've already built an audience themselves. Perhaps they've already won some tournaments that you're not even aware of, and those different types of things. And so yeah, it'd be interesting because I think a lot of times parents are like, hey, my kid's on this video game, get out this video game, go do something productive.
Right.
But like what if they're on this video game and they've got like 100,000 people watching them play?
Yeah.
And like they could monetize their audience and actually legitimately start making money like right now. If you just like attach the bank account to it and added some advertisements, commercials, you know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
And so it's crazy to think about.
It's definitely a new world right now. I know one thing that parents have had a problem with as well as I've dialogued with them is their concern for the sedentary lifestyle that esports or being a YouTuber, things like that, kind of encourage. It seems like it, for many parents that I talk to, they seem discouraged by the fact that their child is becoming more sedentary. And I know that you had talked about actually the data is showing that technology is not making them more
Gen Z
sedentary.
apparently is one of the most active generations. And so it's interesting because if you really think about it, right? So most Gen Zers, a lot of Gen Zers are aspiring to become bloggers and YouTubers and vloggers and those different types of things. But if you look at the stuff they're creating, they're traveling, they're climbing mountains, they're
documenting their life.
Documenting their life, and like they're trying different foods in different places. They're doing all different types of crazy stunts and whatnot. And like they're doing things that people are interested in watching, right? And so in order to do that, they have to be moving around, they have to be traveling, they have to be thinking and being creative and all those different types of things, and producing content constantly on the move. Like I know several young kids who are like vlogging. Like I can think of some kids this weekend who went up to Sedona and walked up mountains and took pictures and did all different types of things. It's super cool. They're creating content, but in order for them to create that content, they have to be active and around and about. If you just sit in the same place at the same time all the time and do the same thing, people get bored of that. You know what I'm saying? And so, it's super interesting to think about. I mean, think about Pokemon when that came out. Like, even I was playing that. You know what I'm saying? Remember that?
Yes.
You just walk around and you try and catch Pokemon. And like you'd be like,
why are these people in my front yard?
In any major pop town, you just see people walking around like this, like looking for Pokemon, and it was crazy. And like the day it got out, they made a bunch of people active, right?
They did.
A bunch of people were like.
It actually increased business too, because what people were doing was putting Pokemon characters at certain businesses, and it was driving
people to
those businesses.
Yeah, I bet businesses were like paying for that to happen.
Oh man.
Right?
But that's not
it was genius.
Yeah, I know.
It was whoever came up with that, like kudos to you. That was absolutely genius.
Yeah.
Like you re-inspired like millennials who, grew up watching Pokemon, and then you inspired Gen Z, and then like you got like Gen X's doing it as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? They were out there catching Pokemon and doing all kinds of stuff, and it was like families were connecting over it, and people were going to the park, and it was crazy, but that's what happened, right? And that was an app on your phone.
Yeah, absolutely.
Think about that. Probably created some of the largest movement of people exercising in like the modern era, if you think about it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, for
sure.
Like
people who never left their houses to catch Pokemon.
I know.
And they had to walk around and know what to do. I mean, some people like drove around and stuff and did all that.
Yeah.
But still, you know what I'm saying? It's crazy to think about what happened.
Yeah, and we're kind of hitting on the fact that Gen Z has a little bit different way of engaging with things than we had. And I think that some of the parents of Gen Zers are concerned, so we've kind of hit on some of those things. But one of the things that I think sports really does is it brings that team element. And I understand that esports has that to a degree, but how much of the team dynamic can you really experience when you're playing from your cell phone or from your spot at your house where you play video games? I think that's kind of the concern, like where are the cooperative kind of like collaborative elements of esports or of technology or things like that? Because I think that's the thing that most parents want their kids in sports for, right? For them to get around other kids.
Yeah, to socialize, to build relationships, all those things are true, right?
And I'm sure those things can happen online.
Yeah.
But the physical interaction, the face-to-face interaction, there's something to be said for that.
Yeah, I agree.
And so could you speak to some of that a little bit? Like what were some of the things that when you were a young person you were getting out of sports with the teammates, with the coaches? Like I'm sure there were people that you were on teams with that you didn't exactly get along with.
Oh, yeah, man.
Yeah.
There's so many stories. But I think there's so many skills that you learn in that kind of space, right?
Really?
I mean, immediately the first thing that comes to mind is like, the ability to connect with people that are from the other side of the tracks. You know what I mean? You might have people on your team that are rich. You might have people on your team that are poor. And we know obviously there's a lot more pay to play sports in America. So usually what's happening is you got some well-to-do people, and then there might be some people who are not well-to-do, but because they're so talented, the well-to-do people cover for them to be able to play. Or the club does, right? And so,
which is a really cool dynamic.
It is. Sports. It can be a really cool dynamic. But I think the cool thing about that is that people from different spaces in life who have different experiences and come from different places get to connect and get to know each other, right? And there's a respect that's built there that perhaps isn't it. And well, thinking about it this way, the structure of the team exists in a way that it perhaps might not exist anywhere else. And what I mean by that is, so you have this poor kid who has nothing and his family has nothing and his mom works a dead-end job, but he's the best player on the team. And so all the kids that's parents are rich and have money look up to that kid.
Right.
And like in most other social spaces, that would never be the case, right?
Right.
But sports is a place that to some degree can even the playing field in that regard, right? And
they look up to that kid because of his talent.
Yep. And then, but what that does is because of that respect that's built there around his talent, there's an opportunity to connect and get to know each other and learn about each other's lives and perhaps grow in a way that you wouldn't anywhere else. And learn things that perhaps you wouldn't learn anywhere else. You know, conflict resolution, coming together and solving problems for the sake of like a goal that you're trying to achieve. The chemistry that's built, the love and the camaraderie, the desire to fight for something that's bigger than you, right? Like you're performing not just for yourself, but for your team. You're a part of a unit, an organism that moves and ebbs and flows on the field and supposed to be interconnected, that communicates with each other, that fulfills its role, you know what I'm saying? Stepping in and fulfilling the role on behalf of somebody else. There's all different types of character development things that happen in the process of being a part of a team, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
There's a lot of like really cool, good dynamics that are involved in being a part of a team. I mean, there are some not so good ones as well, right? There's always those people on the teams that get bullied and get made fun of because maybe they're the player that's like not the good player on the team, right?
Right, for sure.
And so there's all those different types of things and all those different types of dynamics that happen.
Which I would say those things happen on esports as well.
Oh yeah, no doubt. Like
if you've ever made someone rage quit in a video game,
oh, man. if you're garbage, you're gonna get trashed.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And
so there's a lot of
time people are sending each other messages.
Yeah.
You know, that whole swatting thing, right? Calling SWAT teams on people and all that
What do you
stuff.
mean? What's that?
So like if somebody annoys you in a game, you like basically get their IP address. Like people have done this, get their IP address, figure out where they live, and then call a SWAT team to their house.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, people do that.
Like an actual police SWAT team. Wow, that's outrageous.
Yep. I think there was one instance recently actually where somebody died because of that.
Really?
Yeah.
So it's got some deep implications.
Yeah, I mean,
wow.
Yeah. So, and I mean, I'm not saying that happens all the time, but it's been done. Yeah.
So what do you, just to kind of, we're getting close to the end here, but what are some things that you're seeing as far as the evolution of where sports are going to go? Because I know that we're in kind of a weird place now where some parents still see video games as detrimental. Some parents are maybe seeing video games or esports as like a legit thing. But then, you know, physical sports, it does seem like physical sports are kind of going down in popularity as well. So if you could just speak to like, what do you see happening with the future of sports and with competition and things like that?
Yeah, I don't think it's like, I think it's evolving more than it is like going down. I think there are particular.
What do you mean by that?
So I think the nature by which we interpret what sports is changing. I mean, think about it. We have esports now.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? We didn't have that before. Like sports that I play, like we're actually classifying playing a video game as a sport. 20 years ago, that wasn't the case. You know what I'm saying? So I think the way we look at what is a sport is changing fundamentally, right?
Right.
And so I think that's something to consider. So I don't think that like, I think there are certain sports like football, right?
Mm-hmm.
With concussions and all those different types of things where, you know, we're clearly seeing there is like less people wanting to play. There are players that are retiring earlier because they're like, yo, I don't want to, you know, have CTE and not be able to function as a 50, 60-year-old man. You know what I'm saying?
That's real.
And
yeah.
so in those sorts of cases, we're seeing people do things less, but I think in all the other sports, I'm not sure we're seeing any of those things. I think we're just seeing an evolution.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if you think about it, all esports is going to do is increase participation because like you said,
mm-hmm.
it's going to have the kid who knows he can't play the sport physically, go play it on a video game, be really good at it and make a ton of money.
Because he has the knowledge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, so I think that's the case. I think with regards to like the sports themselves and what's happening inside of them, I think the same things are happening in terms of, like I said, kids looking to be known, parents putting that burden on their kids for their own sake and not for the sake of their kid.
Right.
And then all the team dynamics that were involved in that and all the different types of things that happen. Like, if you think about it, all a team is a microcosm of society, right? It's like a small sample size of a group of people coming together and interacting like they would in a business, like they would in a home,
absolutely.
like they would and like we can quantify their success based on like the outcomes of that particular team, like we would with a business, how much money they make, like we do with a home. How many people out of that home are successful or not successful, basically by how much money they make or what they go on to do, so on and so forth. So it's the same kind of thing, and so we see the same kind of problems, right? We see racism, we see sexism, classism, we see all those different types of things, and then we see love and camaraderie and kindness and care and concern for other people. But you know, I know for me fundamentally, a lot of the skills that I want today, self-control, being disciplined, being able to get up every day and do the same thing over and over and over again, and then also understanding that getting up and doing the same thing over and over again produces this consistency that over time produces the result that I want it to produce.
Yeah.
Like I learned that playing sport. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, exactly.
And so like I learned some invaluable skills that helped me be who I am today. You know what I'm saying? Help me wake up with you and let's go record this podcast.
Yeah,
you know
let's
what I'm
do
saying?
this thing. Yeah.
Let's go do what we do every week. Let's continue to do the same things over and over and over and over and over and over and over, because we know as we do that, it amplifies and multiplies, and it will eventually produce the result that we're seeking it to produce. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
And so
one of the things that I've kind of thought about, you were mentioning this earlier with parents and how in a lot of ways they are benefiting from how well that their child performs in athletics. You know, they get some of the same praise. Man, Bobby did really good the other day. The apple must not fall too far from the tree, right? And so I think that in some ways parents who they were able to share the sport experience with their children because they also played sports.
yeah.
Whereas parents, this coming of age of esports, they never got the opportunity, or many of them never really got the opportunity to embrace the technology the same way that their children did.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, parents, are you going to brag to other parents at your work like, hey man, my kid's the esports champion in the Valley? It's like, what does that mean to other parents, right?
Yeah.
So the thing that I think about with parent engagement, it seems that there's a lot of activity that teenagers are engaging in online, whether it's esports or other things, that because parents didn't adopt the technology at the same time, it seems like there's this chasm between where kids are and where their parents are. And it's like, how can parents be proud? Because this is what we were talking about earlier, that children need that sense of pride from their parents. My parents are proud of what I do. Yeah, pride, affirmation.
Yeah.
How can parents...
I think they can, because in our culture...
How can they show their pride, or
in
how
our
can they
culture,
affirm?
like, what is America about? Winning.
Right.
And so it doesn't matter what you do, just win.
Right.
And so if your kid is the Madden champion, they're the champion.
Right. So
You get what I'm
celebrate
saying?
them.
Yeah.
Is
So
that...
it's well, I'm saying celebrate them, but also I think that because of the nature of our society and how we function and what we care about and what our ultimate ideals are, winning, money, defeating the competition, you know what I'm saying, being the best, letting nothing stand in your way. I think as long as your child is the best in whatever it is that they're doing, you'll have something to brag about as a parent, whether you fully understand or comprehend what exactly it is that they do or not. And I think the fact that they're winning will draw you in and make you want to learn more about what it is they're doing. And then once again, I think in anything that you're competing in, there are some transcendent principles that kind of knit that thing together, and there's some things that you universally learn. And so I think perhaps even if parents maybe have never played esports, they may have played sports before, and so they learn some of the same principles and some of the same ideas. Like, if you're going to be good at esports, you're going to have to practice. If you're going to play esports with like a clan, right? If you're a part of a clan, then your clan has to practice. You got to talk online. You got to strategize. You got to, you know what I'm saying? You look at the maps and discern how, okay, here's how we're going to approach, doing what we're doing. Like, I used to play Call of Duty way more than I do now. I haven't played in months, but like, you go online and then you see these guys in the on the map, and they've all got the same clan name, and you know you can
You're in trouble.
Smacked. You know what I'm saying? Because they've already mastered the map, and they know every place that they need to be in order for, because they know like where you're spawning and all those different types of things. And I know I'm probably talking in a language that perhaps some parents may or may not know. So like, you know, I would play Call of Duty on a map. You know, the objective is to kill the other team, right? So the way that it does it is it spawns you in random places, but there are obviously certain random places that it spawns you in. And so usually guys who've been playing the game and know those places, and they'll set up their team in a way that's like, you'll spawn and either immediately get killed or turn a corner and get killed.
Now, spawn means basically where you start the game
rebirth, right? So you got killed and then you rebirth onto the map, ready to play again. But like, these cats know where you're gonna rebirth.
So every time you rebirth, they're just waiting to kill you.
Bro.
So they just make you quit the game, basically.
Yeah, and like they basically, these games are having to become more and more complex in terms of how they do things like that. Because like on the older games, you'd only spawn in certain spots. And like I remember I'd play against clans, and they'd like set it up so like you could only spawn in one spot, and then they'd have a guy who sits and literally just shoots his gun the whole time in that one spot. So instantly as you spawn, you just die straight away.
That's where the term,
literally not joking.
That's where the term rage quitting came from, right?
And then everybody jumps out the map, and then you know.
And then that team looks
you get
great.
25 kills in a row. 25 kills in a row, you get a nuclear bomb. So then you drop the nuclear bomb and you just murk everybody. Bro, it's crazy. So anyways.
Yeah, so there's lots of strategy to
this. There's tons of things.
And you know, that's the thing that's really made me, some of what this esports stuff has really done, and this is harkening back to what we were speaking on earlier, it's forced the scenario where if parents are going to engage with their children, it's going to be on the kids' terms.
Yeah, man.
Right?
True.
Because before in
It's
other
a new
sports,
world.
you had to tolerate your parents at the at the game. Whereas like the parents have to actually step into that world
And try and participate.
and try to participate.
And
but if they would, think of how cooperative and the family dynamics. Like just even when I play board games with my kids, right? There's just a connection that we sense.
Yeah.
You know?
And think about the opportunity that esports is to even play with your kid, because like there becomes a certain point, right, where you can't run around on the field anymore.
Right. That's true.
But you can pick up a controller and play a game with them.
Man, that's a really great point.
You know what I'm saying?
Really great point.
So the opportunity to connect.
To engage.
Is greater if you think about it. Because
Man.
you can sit on the couch next to them. You may have a bum knee or whatever else, but that's not going to stop you from playing a video game with them, right?
Yeah.
And that could be real connection time where you really get to talk and you really get to share with each other and check in on each other. You know, that could be their safe space. You could be wondering, man, how do I, and also that's what sport was for me, right? Like when my life was hard, I wanted nothing more than to go and play football because I could escape, and all that weight that I was feeling, it wasn't there on the field. And so in esports, if that's their safe place, if that's the place where they escape, maybe that's the very place you need to go in order to have those deep, meaningful conversations you wanted to have.
And that's another thing that I want to speak to a little bit, that I do know about esports and things like that, in that they are online and that teenagers are playing with teenagers all over the world.
Yeah.
And one of the opportunities that I've seen is for really great conversations to happen between people all over, right? It expands your interaction beyond just your neighborhood or your local city or wherever to worldwide. And some of the knowledge and wisdom that people just from other countries have, there's just really a cultural exchange that's happening. But I think there's a lot of opportunity too there for students who want to have influence, who want to be able to encourage other people. You know, there's a lot of stuff that's going on there in those terms as well. It's not just the bad influences that your kid's going to have. There's also the opportunity for your kid to be an influence. I know that as a parent, that's one of the things for me that I always I try to put on my kids, you know, not just to be a receiver of good things in life, but to be a person that's able to give good things as well. And so that's the thing with me with them is I'd hate to come in there and watch them playing games and just be cursing someone out. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So for me as a parent, that affords, just by virtue of them playing games, it affords me the opportunity to have the conversations with them about their influence.
Yep.
You know what
That's
I mean?
good.
And so that's one thing that I've definitely seen, but we're going to wrap it up here. And as we do, I just wanted to kind of get some closing thoughts from you about what should sports be about? Are there any personal mantras that you've developed over your time in athletics? And, and just some things that you feel like, man, this is what sports really should be about?
Yeah, I think sports is a unique opportunity to build relationships and engage and like use the God-given gifts and talents that you have to bring people joy and to connect with people and build relationships and learn skills that are going to carry you through life. But I think the reality for us is that sports has become another thing, esports, whatever else, it's become another thing that we worship, right? That we look to give us our sense of satisfaction, to give us our sense of peace and contentment, that we're enough,
Right.
that we've made it, that we're worth it, that our lives are significant, right?
Right.
And I don't think you can find that there. And I think it's interesting because the thing is with sports, right? If you ever do actually make it to the top, you got to stay there.
Right.
And then the reality is there's always somebody gunning for your spot.
Right.
And as quickly as you got that spot, you can lose it. You're always one injury away from your career ending, right? Like, that's all it takes. Like, you could one wrong step on the court, on the field, whatever, and your career is over.
Wow.
You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's all it takes. One bad hit, one wrong move, somebody pushes you by accident. And it might not even be on the field, it could be in practice. You know what I'm saying?
So many things that are true in sports are just true in life.
Exactly, right? You're one step away from everything you have leaving. And as quickly as you being known, you being forgotten.
That's true.
Right? And so you put your whole identity in this thing that in a moment can fail you.
Man.
You know what I'm saying? And I
Yeah.
think that's what we do. And the reality is, like, hardly any of us even make it. And then those of us that make it, right? How many of us actually make it
You
to
have
like
to
the
stay.
pinnacle of that sport?
Right.
Like one or two?
Right.
Are you gonna bank your whole existence on that? You're
Yeah.
gonna bank all of who you are on that? You're
It's
gonna
like how
bank
many, yeah.
your identity on that? Those are slim odds, friend.
That's true.
You know what I'm saying? And so ultimately, I think we're doing ourselves a disservice, and once again, we're looking to something that can't give us what we need. And I think the only thing we can look to is Christ, man. I think the only thing we can look to is God to find that satisfaction, that contentment. And then what we begin to do is to play sports and to do the things we love, understanding that the gifts that we've been given to enjoy in this life by the gift giver, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And so we're thankful to the gift giver that they cared about us enough. He cares about us enough to give us this gift that we can enjoy in this life. And sports is a gift. Make no mistake about it. It brings people together. It crosses all different types of lines, right?
Absolutely.
Religious lines, socioeconomic lines, political lines. It crosses them all. You know what I'm saying? The World Cup brings the world together.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I think it's
sports has that power.
700 people. 700
The
million,
politics and religion have not been able to accomplish.
700 million people watched the World Cup final.
Man.
700 million. That's almost 1 billion people.
That's
Think about
outrageous,
that.
dude.
You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It brings people together. It's a gift. And
Yeah,
but
it really is.
what we can't do is like worship it.
Yeah,
because
for
it
sure.
can't ultimately give us what we need.
Great
I think we
servant,
can see
terrible
that.
master.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
I think we can see that in our culture. We can see that in our kids that get wrapped up in it. And then when they lose it, their life goes down the pan, right? They're depressed, they're sad,
Yeah,
they have
absolutely.
no identity, they're lost, right? We can see it in parents that perhaps when their kids aren't successful, they like reject them or are upset with them or angry at them or whatever else, right? Because they feel like it says something about them.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? And so
Yeah.
we gotta be careful, man. Like you said, amazing gift, terrible master.
Man, that's great. And I'm really glad that, just to wrap it up here, that you brought, your faith into this issue, because it really reminds me of this passage in 1 Corinthians 9. And I've often thought about this issue of sports and what application that sports has in faith. You've seen things like this with Tim Tebow, taking a knee in prayer in sports and kind of some of the flack that he got from it. And just different athletes when they've been religious, they'll have a verse under their eye or something.
Yeah.
I think at one point KD had some verses on his sneakers. So there is
Steph Curry.
Steph Curry. And again, like there's been this tension between a person's faith, like how can you ask God to intervene in this win? God help us win, right? And I don't think that that's where most athletes are at, but I do think that there is this notion of competition, of athletics, of proving yourself, of becoming something better. As you said, you coach developmental.
Also gratefulness just to have the opportunity to even do it.
To have health.
Yeah, just gratefulness to even, like I tore my Achilles in 2012, and I couldn't walk for a year. And I just realized how much in my life I had taken for granted the ability to walk.
Wow. That's good, man.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It should just be a sense of gratefulness that you actually have the health and then the capabilities to do what you're doing.
Man, that's so good. Yeah, and that's what I think, back to the issue of faith in sports, just the Christian perspective on this. I don't think most Christians, when it comes to the sport, are asking God to intervene for their team. There may be some, but I think the proper view is to ask for health, and for you to be able to do your best, right? And so there is this aspect of how our faith develops our character, and how sports provides an opportunity for your character to be developed as well. And there's this particular passage where in the Bible where we're encouraged to kind of use our faith in an athletic way, or in the way that athletes do. And I wanted to share this passage, 1 Corinthians 9, verse 24. Do you not know that in a race all the runners run, but only one gets the prize? Run in such a way as to get the prize. Everyone who competes in the games goes into strict training. They do it to get a crown that will not last. But we do it to get a crown that will last forever. So there is something to be said about this idea, and sports definitely, people in athletics definitely understand this, right? You said earlier, I think we were talking about Cristiano Ronaldo and his discipline in the things that he does.
Stupid stuff.
Yeah, in order to be the best, right? And this is what this passage says: in order to be the best, compete in such a way that you win. Now, I don't mean that we're trying to be in competition with other people, but it does make us think about this aspect of our lives and our faith. Is this something that life, and here's what you realize in sports: when you get knocked down, you get back up. And that's true in sports, that's true in life. And what our faith ought to do is tell us, like, hey, you know what? Life has knocked you down, get back up, because there's a prize bigger than just a Super Bowl trophy that you're competing for. We're talking about the health of your family. We're talking about your eternal estate. Is there anything worth working hard to achieve? And not to say that we're achieving our faith, but those are things that are important to value, to have as things that you work towards. And so, yeah, discipline yourself to win.
Amen. All right.
Yes, sir.
Episode 13 in the books.
Yeah.
RLTKPHX Real Talk Phoenix. Follow, like, subscribe, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. What did I miss?
You said YouTube this time.
But LinkedIn.
LinkedIn.
See that? We're on all those RLTKPHX. You'll find us. Thank you for listening. Thank you for engaging. This is just a conversation starter. Comments, questions, concerns, hit us up. We'd love to hear from you.
Yeah.
Until next time.
Ooh.
Peace.
Peace out.